Don't mind me. I'm hunting gnomes. You know, gnomes. These things, like this. Okay, never mind. We're not here to talk about gnomes anyway. We're actually here to talk about this Sony HXR-NX80. Now this camera here is not what you might typically think about when it comes to a filmmaking kind of channel like this. From typically what you've seen me put up here so far is mostly you know, short films and things of that nature. And you know, when you think about those kinds of movies, you think about either cinema cameras or say like a mirrorless camera, which in my case, that's what actually I normally film on, is a mirrorless camera. In fact, my most recent short film, Survivors and those kind of films, and plus what I'm filming on right now is the Sony a6500. So you might ask why I have a camera like this and why I would be, you know, wanting to talk about it. Well, the reason why is because I do more than just film short films. I also film events. I have filmed truck races. In fact, I do a lot of truck races, mud races, things like that. I've also, you know, done events for like the church that I attend and work for. So a true video camera over say a mirrorless camera has a lot of advantages. And in this particular case, this camera here, I would say is particularly special in a lot of ways. So some of the things I wanted to go over, I don't want to go too detailed. You can find a lot of specs on this camera online. There's been a lot of reviews already, so you can look up a lot of those cameras as far as like, you know, where things are at and that kind of stuff. But I mostly wanted to focus on like the reasons why I keep a camera like this and use it. One of the reasons I like it is because it really truly is a run and gun. So when you're filming an event like say, like I mentioned, a monster truck event or drag races or anything of that nature, you're really having to move quickly. In fact, in my case, I tend to be on a track with the vehicles, and so I have to move around a lot and have to be able to get a shot very quickly. And these mirrorless cameras, you know, the screen, at least with the 6500, the screen is terrible outside. You can't see very good. And it's a lot more cumbersome to build that camera up so that you can actually utilize it in a filmmaking kind of way. You really got to add a lot of hardware to it. It gets bulked up pretty quickly, and it's not very friendly to use. Great image, but not very operator friendly and not very portable friendly, believe it or not, once you build it up. So a camera like this steps in very, very nicely in those situations. So a couple of quick things. I will say on the technical side of it, as you can see, it looks kind of like like a prosumer camera, because it really basically is a prosumer camera. You know, it has a lot of features that both a amateur would use, because it's, you know, there's an auto function on the back that allows you to kind of kick the camera completely into automatic, which makes it very user-friendly to somebody who, you know, doesn't really want to fiddle with a lot of the pro features of it. Someone like me, I do tend to dive into the pro features of it quite a bit. One of the things that's kind of a cool thing when it comes to being able to shoot fast is the fact that when you flip out the screen, the camera turns on. And that typically takes about a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds before the camera is actually ready to engage recording. This is especially handy when you're out filming, like I said, these drag races or these events at my church. Like I filmed, you know, kids doing Easter egg hunts and that kind of stuff, and you have to kind of be really ready to get those shots quickly. So that's one of my favorite features of it. Two, because it does have enough pro features for someone like me, I really like having control of the audio. You see here, I can do a lot of your normal, I can do 2 of your normal XLR cables, microphones, shotguns, whatever that might be. I can use a lavalier mic in one channel and a shotgun mic in the other channel. So you could do the stereo mic right and left if you wanted to. And with that, one of the other cool things, and I kind of want to get more into the overall aspect of why I like it so much, and that be the portability and usability of it. This camera has, to be able to just run and gun it is really nice. I grab the handle, I can do low shots, I can do high shots, I can do a lot of nice shots with this camera that really would be very difficult to do with, say, a 6500 or a mirrorless camera of that nature. It truly is got the form factor. It's designed, obviously, you know, you can see with the way the handle is and everything, which this handle comes off, by the way. With these two screws, just pops right off. So if you wanted to make this even more backpack friendly, let's say, you could do it. But I don't typically use this in filmmaking. I have a few times. There's been a few times where there's been some shots that I knew that I could not accomplish a particular shot with my 6500, like this one. Now that shot I actually did with this camera, and what I really wanted was the ability to have a start with a wide shot, which I did, and then when my character came into frame, I was able to push in both by walking in, but also by using my zoom rocker on top, because I wanted to end up on a more depth of field kind of shot, a close-up that had a more cinematic kind of feel. And my 6500, I would not have been able to do that. Plus, the autofocus on this camera is incredible. Unlike the autofocus on my 6500, which, in my opinion, even though they say it's great, it sucks. At least when you're using a monitor, it's terrible. But this one here, the face tracking is impeccable, and you have some flexibility with your zoning and your center in focusing wide. You have some options with this camera that really make it really flexible and customizable when it comes to that. But you know, overall, I say that there's a use in my gear pack to have a camera like this, because there is no perfect camera, right? The 6500, which has a phenomenal image, has its drawbacks, some of which I've already kind of covered in this video, which I probably shouldn't because this is more about the NX80 than it is that. But anyway, I digress. You know, a camera like this, I think it's good to have, if you're able to have a couple of different kinds of cameras in your package, because that way you have, you know, what you need for any given shoot. You know, some shoots may require, you know, a mirrorless camera, and it makes sense in certain scenarios. And then there's other shoots where you have to move and be quick and flexible, where a camera like this may be, you know, merited. So, you know, overall, my experience with this camera has been great. Now, let me say a few things about the camera that I kind of don't like, that I've had some issues with. Just to be fair, you got to look at both sides of this. So this is a 1-inch sensor. This is not like an APS-C or a Super 35. I wish it was. I think Sony should totally do that. I think they should totally put like a APS-C sensor in a camera like this. How awesome would that be? Have the quality of, like say, the 6500 or cameras like that. But it doesn't. So it is a 1-inch sensor, and I would say it's a very noisy sensor. And this is pretty typical of a lot of Sony's 1-inch sensors. I've actually owned in the past the Sony NX100, which is also a great camera for a lot of event kind of stuff. But similar issue with that camera is the 1-inch sensor is pretty noisy. You know, if you look up in the sky and especially in the shadows, you can see a lot of noise, which is why I don't typically would say that it would be very good for filmmaking. And then the other issue I run into with this camera is, for some reason, and I don't know why, but my Rode NTG2, which I'm using right now on this camera to record my audio, has a awful noise floor when plugged into this camera. And I use phantom power. Now, I don't have that issue with the Sony shotgun mic, which this one is the ECM XM1, which is a very good microphone for on-camera audio like this. But I was able to get around that issue if I put a battery in my NTG2 and didn't run phantom power. If I did that, the noise floor improves dramatically. So that's a weird thing. I've never had a camera do that. My NX100 didn't do that, but for some reason this one does that. So that's kind of a fail of this camera. It may be a defective issue in the handle. I'm not sure. I got to do some research about that. It's not the greatest in low light, but again, I don't expect it to be with, you know, it being a fixed lens system. But I will say this, the lens does go down to 2.8, and it drops only down to f4 at the long end. And so it does have a pretty good, a solid lens when it comes to light intake. And again, going back to kind of that cinematic look or not cinematic look, it does have more of a video camera look, and that's for sure. You know, when you zoom in, it doesn't have that completely smooth background like you would get out of a mirrorless camera. But I will say on the positive side, you can do pretty good with it. You know, I have actually thought about maybe possibly doing a short film with it, solely with this camera, to show that, you know, a person could do something like that. Again, knowing where you can use it when you have problems, you know, you have a shot with another camera that would be very difficult to do. In fact, I'll show you a couple right now that I actually have used this camera for. So shots like that were very difficult to do with my 6500, but this camera came in and pulled them off quite well. And it's because of the stabilization, the particular non-fiddliness of this camera. It's not, you know, it's very easy to use. You can just grab it like, you know, literally you can take this camera out of the box and just use it. So anyway, I probably have rambled quite a bit, and I apologize for that. So yeah, I'll let the camera speak for itself with some of the shots that I showed. And if you have any questions about, you know, other questions that maybe I didn't cover about this camera that you would be interested in, you can drop them in the comments below. But for now, I think that I'm going to get back to hunting some pesky gnomes. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you in the next video.